Gamebreaker TV.
Hello everybody and welcome to GuildCast episode 16 for March 29, 2012. You're watching Gamebreaker TV and I am Mike Schaffnet. Today, beta. We got some beta to talk about. There are tons and tons of information, so let's get excited. All that and more, plus your viewer questions. But first, the one, the only, Mr. Broken Tooth, Mike Bacafoni.
Thanks. Now everyone's gonna be looking at my smile, thinking they're gonna see like
A gap?
like some
Where's the gap?
Jim Carrey, Dumb and Dumber like chunk missing out. Thanks, appreciate it.
No problem, no problem. We missed you. And Elizabeth Clare. Elizabeth, how's it going?
Great, how about you?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And our Mr. Editor-in-Chief of Gamebreaker TV, Scott Hawks.
Hi.
Scott,
How are you?
You looked a little shocked there.
I'm surprised by everything right now.
Everything is just happening too fast. All right, so let's get into it here.
Stuns me.
Blinking, wow. I'll try and not startle you too much and keep my eyes open the whole time then. I don't know if I can do that. So there's a lot to talk about this week. Arena, you know, they didn't give us much information. So I don't think we have a show to do. So thanks for watching. We actually had a lot to talk about. Their experiences galore. If I recall correctly, all three of you actually got into the beta. So a few of you guys were able to play some Guild Wars. So what did you guys get to experience? What did you guys experience this weekend?
Oh my gosh.
As much as humanly possible.
Life.
Like
Just a few things. Just one thing.
just a couple.
Anything.
Yeah. Just went through Character Creator like 50 times.
Yeah.
Roll all the Norns, just
How much-
check out all their tattoo options.
How much time did you guys put in this weekend?
It kind of blurred into this strange, weird alternative to time, and I have no idea because essentially by Sunday evening, like I'm talking to Mike and I'm like, there's a end of beta like event going on tonight, but
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
There's just
Yeah.
too much going on.
Yeah, I found out that there is a way to check how long you've been playing, and it actually tallies up all of your characters. And I wasn't looking forward to that. I thought it
man.
was just like your one character. It's like total time on this account. It's like 30 hours. I was like, damn it! I did
Nice.
nothing this weekend.
All right, so a lot that you guys got to cover. What about the Sylvari and Asura races? Are those still locked out?
They weren't playable, but if you were watching very carefully out in the world, you could see a couple of them here and there. And that was very pleasant.
Usually chilling by gates or guards walking around and stuff. They
Yeah.
could talk.
pretty much stand out like a lot.
You could
Yeah.
talk. You could talk to in Divinity's Reach. You could talk to a Sylvari who's standing near some vendors, and it's got that very sort of like offbeat dialogue that that you'd be used to with Sylvari. It was really cool. So yeah, they look great, but no, we couldn't actually get to play with them.
Were you guys excited to see them? Did they live up to what you kind of wanted, or do you want to see more of the customization through character customization before you guys make a decision?
I'm really excited by what I see. I definitely had the character creator for them, but what I saw was very, very promising, especially for the Sylvari, because before their remake, they were not what I was really hoping for. And so to see them so well executed now is just really, really encouraging and wonderful.
I didn't even look at them. I was just like,
PvP.
I did the Will Smith like Men in Black thing, walking past the guard. So that's like all I did. Went right to PvP. Did not care.
Go straight to PvP. Do not collect go, or do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Yeah, they're not the sort of plant version of elves that they kind of were for a while. They're certainly something very distinctive. And as I said, the thing that pleased me, they look great. They really look fantastic, and the walk and everything, it all just sort of seems perfect. But when you actually speak to them, they've got that off-kilter logic that's completely alien to everything around. And at the end of the conversation, you go, Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
That.
And then just walk off confused, and it's perfect. It's really well done.
All right. Well, I think going back to like the first impression of my experience was sitting right over there and watching Gary just gawk at the cities and how incredibly expansive and just gorgeous these cities were. Do we know if these races are going to have cities on a similar scale?
No, they're going to have like tiny villages, and that's why they're not released them now. So what's going to happen?
We're 5 minutes in, and you're already trolling me.
I'm sorry. Let's see. If I wasn't so tired, I would be able to keep my face straight for a good more 30 seconds. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine having like the pale tree who's like a twig?
Yeah, it's a sapling still after 250 years.
It's a tree house.
Yes. So you walk out of the Black Citadel, and then you head and you go, oh, okay.
That's the Asura village. So we do know that they'll have their own major cities. We are assuming that they're Radisum and the Pale Tree, and that they will be every bit as glorious as what we've seen so far.
Excellent. Yeah, the Asura apparently have like a Borg ship or something. I read the description, and it's like a floating cube, and I'm like, that is a Borg ship.
Ziggurats everywhere. It's gonna be
That's fantastic. Yeah, floating cube sounds exactly like what I would hope to see for the Asura.
Do we know if we have any idea of just how big the world of Guild Wars 2 is going to be yet? Oh, that big?
That big. This
so much that it doesn't
I
fit
once
on the
caught
screen.
a world this big.
Exactly.
If you scroll back on the map, the world map, all the way back, it actually like the world sort of appears before you in like this painted way, but it's all vague at the moment, and it just keeps going and going and going, and then eventually you start zooming in, and then Divinity's Reach is this little thing in the middle. And just watching videos of Divinity's Reach and going around it for yourself, it's monstrously large. So when that looks small on the world map, you know this is just going to be absolutely massive.
More kind of in relation to Guild Wars 1, we see that most of the Prophecies areas are available, plus a whole bunch more of the Tarnished Coast and Maguma jungle, since that's kind of where the Asura and Sylvari are hanging out. And a lot of areas that we didn't have access to in Prophecies we see now. There were a lot of grayed out areas on the map that are now part of the Char territory, or part of the human territory. So there's a lot more landmass available than there was in the original Prophecies, and all of that seems to be like hugely detailed.
Yeah, and these land masses and like the area that you have to explore, it's definitely going to feel a lot bigger that you don't have a mount.
Right. No
there.
Flying either.
Just rub it in just a little bit. It's a lot of walking you're going to be doing. Let's just say that.
Once you get to a place you can always revisit it instantly. I'm just saying.
That's true.
Take away that sense of exploration like that.
Exactly.
All right. So apart from the cities, have we seen any area, or have you guys seen any areas or zones that you guys are just really made you stop in your tracks and like look around and just be like, holy cow, look at the artwork?
Yeah. This sounds really bad, but virtually all of them. It's demented. You just walk out, and this is like you think your starter zone. You're just thinking, grass and a few hills, and you walk out, and you turn around, and there's like this looming city just over the top of you, and you're like, oh my god. And then you turn around, and then there's a small village, and in the distance there's a windmill floating around in the background, and then it's like somebody spent the day in an art museum and then made it into a giant art museum, and then you're walking through it, and everywhere just looks like it's just full of paintings. Everything in the background's gorgeous. It's crazy.
Amazing.
Elizabeth, you look a little bit excited there. Elizabeth, you're dancing with joy, like when you're not on camera over the.
Sorry, I love the world so much. I was going through the lower region of Kessex Hills, which is the human 15 to 25 area, and I came across this part where it starts to kind of merge into the jungle. So you've got the Sylvari territory, and there's this like luminescent waterfall, and it's all like really dark, and there's this green fog that's hovering over the water, and you're just walking through it, and it is astounding. It is absolutely magical. It's just phenomenal.
Mike, what were you saying just before that?
Oh, no, I was just commenting on Scott. He's like, someone went to art museum and then made it bigger and then turned it into, it's like, I thought that was funny. That's all. That's not funny anymore, though.
Moment passed, but my fault.
Thanks.
My fault. I threw it back to...
But honestly, I was just... You're walking around, and it's the first time I got to actually walk around it, and you see the videos, and you're like, wow, that looks great. But until you actually got the sort of scale in front of you, and you try and take in all of it, and you can't pull your camera back far enough to actually get it in shot. Because I'm walking around thinking, there's something wrong with this. I can't scroll back enough. And it's not. It's just that big. You can't actually see the entirety of it in one go. And we're used to, with most MMOs, if you stand in front of a city, pull back with your mouse, you can see basically the sides of the city all in one go. You can't do that with Guild Wars 2. It's just, it fills the horizon. It's crazy.
So
in a wonderful way.
Definitely upped a scale in terms of the artwork production value. They're raising the bar there.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
I mean, as far as like from an artistic perspective, I mean, everything does look good. I'm more. I mean, it looks good, so it almost becomes like you just don't see it anymore. Like you'll walk into something, wow, that's pretty cool, then you just get absorbed into it. I'm more keen on the sound design. I think the sound design is actually fantastic. It's ridiculously good.
Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, you do a lot of music related work. So what blew you away about the sound design? How does it engross you into the game?
It started with the city tours, and as I was walking around, I didn't even know this. I just did the city tours the first time. I was kind of just like, I'm just gonna walk around and film it. Maybe people will think it's cool. And so I was walking around, and then you hear somebody talking, and I was just like, oh snap, people are talking. And then you keep walking, and then you hear more people talking. You just hear these conversations happening all over the place. So I thought that was really nice. Then I'm walking around out in the Eternal Battlegrounds and just basically all those areas out there. And you start to kind of then I had the music turned down, I had all the ambience up, and you start to hear the differences, the changes as you move from place to place. And there was one area where I was kind of like in this like inlet where there was like a couple houses and like a farm, a village or something, protected by like a wall, basically like a choke point. And you heard like a rushing sound, like the wind, like they have a wind sound and you can hear it. It sounds, you end up hearing it again in other places, but it was like pitched up just enough and it makes it sound like it's rushing more. And it wouldn't naturally do that if you're in that kind of an area with like grass around. So that kind of stuff, like little things like that, little tiny things like that. It was a lot of attention to detail as far as
small things that just kind of throw you into the immersion of it and really sell it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never walked around a city in an MMO and not felt like that was just queued up because I walked around the corner. Like, you know, they have certain spots in most MMOs, you walk around a city and they have certain spots where there'll be certain NPCs that are there to make you feel like it's a city. Whereas when you're walking around Divinity's Reach or Black Citadel, you're walking around and it just feels like a city's going on around you. And it's just happening, and there's so many layers to it. The sound design might be spot on with that. It's just amazing that the music cues aren't overbearing. They're just sort of, they appear and they're there without you realizing they've kind of started, and it just adds to the whole thing. There's just layers and layers and layers in everything that they've done in those cities, and it's astonishing. It really is. Until you've actually gone through it, it's hard to really describe just the total amount of work that's been put into it. It's incredible.
Elizabeth, I don't think for a single second that the camera hasn't been on you. You haven't been smiling ear to ear over this. I think it's safe to say that you're absolutely loving what you're seeing here.
I do. I'm absolutely. I'm admittedly a fan of the game. I'm not trying to hide that from anyone. But every time I get back into the game, it's just fascinating and wonderful and exciting.
All right. Well, so we talked a little bit just before about this, about travel and how they're going to be doing instant travel via teleportation. Now, have we learned anything more about if there's going to be any kind of way to see these zones from the air, something of maybe like flying on something, so that you can actually get a sense of getting to see this art to scale instead of seeing it all on foot? Do we know any more on that? Kind of?
We've seen a lot of airship art, and Colin confirmed, I think for Guild Mag, that airships will at some point or another come into gameplay. So we don't know if that means that they're going to be a travel system or if they're for one specific event or mission. But we do know that we will be in the air on an airship.
That's cool.
Could those potentially be flight points, or do you think that'll have anything to do with gameplay?
I'd love it if they were, just because I really want to be able to fly over Altaria and see what's going on.
You know, we talked, we kind of briefly went over teleportation. That's actually probably one of my least favorite things in this game. And I know we kind of touched on it earlier and everything. I know we're not at the part where we talk about things we hate, but we're here now. So, I mean, honestly, it's like, I think that it's cool that you have these checkpoints. I don't like that you could just pour all over the place. I think it's kind of, it's funny because everybody bitches about WoW being a hub-based game. It's like, oh, everybody just stays in the city and nobody ever leaves. It's like, well, the same thing is going to happen here, in my opinion, where you're just going to bloop, bloop, like hop your way over to where you need to go. So that's probably one of my least favorite things. I know we're all excited. We just played it and everything, and I am too. I think the game is great, but I don't like teleportation. I think it really takes away from a lot of just a lot of the.
That's completely legitimate. Yeah.
Well, Mike, let's talk about a little bit something that you do like, something that you just got the beta, you jumped right into, some dub v dub. So, Mike, you got a chance to play. What did you think? Well, overall, what did you think of the World vs. World experience?
It was, I got the same feeling that I used to get like way back in the day, just PvPing in other games. Or if you played like a first-person shooter type game and you're on like a large map and you're doing just a lot of sneaking around, a lot of like reconning or something, you get that same feeling where it's like you're out there, you're exposed, but you know something could happen at any moment, and you'd have like these long moments of tension, and then it's followed by like a snap where like action like just happens. So you have a lot of that going on, and some people are probably going to see that as boring. They will. For me, I just felt like I felt like I did like when I was playing WoW, like running around Terran Mill, you know, in South Shore. I was out there sneaking around looking for a fight, and there's long periods of nothing followed by just like a huge fight, which could escalate and get bigger and bigger, and then it would die down again. So it's that's pretty much what it felt like, and it felt good. I liked it.
It's interesting that you bring up you know South Shore in terms of PvP, because I think a lot of people equate this to bringing back old school memories of Alterac Valley. After having played it, can we stop making that reference to Alterac Valley?
I can't say it's like, yeah, this is not like AV.
It's not Alterac Valley.
This is way bigger than that.
How so?
Alterac Valley is basically a series of bottlenecks between 2 points, and it's the bottlenecks at which you are supposed to fight over the points that allow you to go to basically the next bottleneck, and it's who controls the bottlenecks who wins. And if you don't, then you end up doing AV for like 75 hours, like you used to in the old days.
Not anymore. They nerfed it.
Yeah. Until they nerfed it. Again, whereas in WVW, there are hardly any bottlenecks. You can find your way around. There are certain points where there's naturally going to be some fighting on certain bridges, certain points of access, things like that. But if you want to get around areas, you can, pretty much most of them. It's so open and big and crazy and big that it makes Alterac Valley look like a fight in a hallway. It really does.
Fight in a hallway.
Completely different.
Yeah, you could go right down the middle of that map, or I'm sorry, all the way down like one side of that map, and you're likely going to see other people. And in Eternal Battlegrounds, the main section of World vs. World, you could cross a large chunk of that map and not see anybody, and then come across like just a huge fight that's going on. So it's, again, it goes back to the whole like you're out there, you're exposed, there's a lot of stuff going on, or you're going to like an area where there's like some action, and then you have time to like plan these things, like the Elementalist video that we're rolling 50 times here. I'm sitting here chilling with VV Dub, right, and he's in the Golem, and we're just in the Golem, and we're walking, and it literally took like 10 minutes or so, right, for us to get from where we were to where we needed to go, because he couldn't just like teleport anywhere or anything. But it was at that build-up. We were just going, and if we get there, then we did like massive fight. It was cool.
I think?
Go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, I was going to say. I think it will be different when it's 300 to 500 people on each of those maps than what we experience. Because, I mean, I know that the last time the dev spoke, they says, oh, we had about 300 on, but they were also aiming at, oh, we'd probably be able to push it up to about 500 when we finish, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, 500 people on that map, then it's going to be difficult to go that far without bumping into people. You know what I mean? As it was, I mean, it was the very underpopulated servers. To say that we owned them.
Oh man, did we own them?
Press, I hear Press pretty much had it locked down all weekend long.
Oh,
Yeah, end of the night, it was just solid green.
We just
Solid. I think Red
face-rolled.
had one little tower left at the very, very bitter end that we
Yeah,
just
you have-
couldn't steal.
You have the pie chart that tells you how much you own, and basically you need to get a magnifying glass out to find the bit that wasn't
You're like,
ours.
oh, that's a 0.01%. That's not us.
Yeah.
Some people in chat are talking about this just to get a sense of scale. Probably some of the biggest world PvP that we've seen is Wintergrasp. How big in relation to Wintergrasp is? I know it's 4 maps, so let's just compare it to one of these maps. How big is one of these maps in comparison to something like Wintergrasp?
Well, we'd have to compare them both. We're running in both of them, not like on a mount or anything. It's definitely bigger than Wintergrasp. And Wintergrasp is it's totally different, man. It's so hard to compare the two because Wintergrasp it is also a funnel where once the towers are down, then it's pretty much just you're focusing on one side of the same building. Whereas here in the Eternal Battlegrounds, or just anywhere in WVW, you have multiple nodes that you have to control, and a fight could go out, could start happening anywhere with any number of people. I mean, the footage that we're looking at, I believe still, these fights that I got into had, I think, probably between 30 and 40 opposition, and if this map goes 500. Like imagine that scale times like 2 times X number across the map. I mean, there's a lot of potential.
It is, and it's mayhem when it kicks off. That's what I love about it. When you get stuck into the middle of one of those fights and there's effects going off everywhere, there's people eating AoE, there's just, it's absolutely bonkers. It's like just being in the middle of it. It just feels like it feels like you're on like a 4th of July parade, except that like somebody's beating you around the back of the head with it.
Yeah.
It's instead of, let's put it, Wintergrasp is essentially a zone designed to ensure that PvP happens in certain locations, whereas one of the 4 maps is a world that they've plonked places onto for you to go and fight at if you want to. And that's kind of the difference for me. The other ones are funnel to make sure PvP happens. With this, PvP is going to happen, but it's going to basically happen where you fancy it more, I think.
For sure.
Well, what do you guys think about the aspect, like the resources and the different like siege elements? How did that play? Did it feel good? Did it feel natural? Did it feel important? How I mean that seems like such a big element of adding in the patrols and the camps that you can take over for resources. Were those ignored completely, or did those really did doing those objectives and participating in those things really help with the experience?
So the supply caravans like the Daliacs and all that, like those are definitely things that once you get around them, then it triggers like an event. It's all like, oh, suddenly we're getting attacked. It's like, oh, good thing I just happened to be here. But so you fight off whatever's attacking them, and then you escort them the rest of the way, and it might even trigger more than once. I don't even know. But once it gets to safety, then you get it'll pop up with a little metal and some loot, not loot, but some currency. So you are doing something to help. I did after I finished that. I was kind of like, all right, well, that was kind of mundane, but you know what? If I was on a server where my team needed the most help as possible, or I needed more stuff or whatever, then you do feel like you're doing some kind of contribution, and it's very easy to do that.
Right. It's a good way for smaller groups of players to be really a big part of contribution, and I think when you see matches getting closer, those are going to matter more, as you're worried about how much supply can we possibly get to defend this keep as people are trying to break down our doors, or how much supply can we get to build something to break down the keep doors. Right. So I think the closer things are, the more important that'll be.
Mm-hmm. I think that. Sorry, I was going to say, I think that it was difficult for us to kind of get a feel for it, because I went and made a few cannon emplacements and built up an oil cauldron, desperately hoping somebody was going to walk under it, because I really want to dump a big bunch of oil onto.
Oh,
somebody.
dude, it felt good. It felt so good. I'm telling you, it was amazing.
But because it was such a one-sided affair, because of the imbalance in the servers, which won't be there when live comes around, you're not having them banging on the doors all the time. So that aspect of it didn't feel as important because the natural sort of flow of the game wasn't present for us because it was beta. So that wasn't there. But you just know that running up and down those, because you can run up and down the stairs, and then I realise, hold on, I can jump off the side of this, land on the roof, fall off the side of the supply depot, pick the bag up quick, and get there faster. And you know that's going to be happening because people are going to be running up and down like crazy because people are trying to knock your walls down. And that sort of impetus that you need wasn't present, but you can see how it's designed for that to happen when the game's live.
What about the part we've talked about this in previous GuildCasts where, underwater combat, canals, waterways that lead into potential like back doors for keeps. Did you guys see any of those? Or have they not been implemented yet?
No, all that stuff is there. That's part of the actual geography of the map.
How did it feel? Did it feel good?
Well, when I was doing my city tour stuff, or the WW maps tour, I came out of. Damn, where was I at? I was definitely in Eternal Battlegrounds, and I think I was running around towards the mid area, and I just randomly come across like some ruins, which is like whatever, which actually were kind of cool. And then there was a tunnel, and the tunnel led through like some tombs, and it came out like a good ways away. So I was just kind of like, this is kind of interesting because if you're coming to attack this particular node or keep, you come through that way, the way I was leaving, you go through the ruins, and you're coming up like the back door. So those things do exist, and there was lots of them. I didn't even explore them all because I didn't want to have a 50-minute video. I was running out of hard drive space. But no, there's a lot of these things in there.
You're going to have your Navy SEAL squad coming out.
Exactly.
Oh, that's true.
You know there's going to be an A-team that's in charge of like going through waterways and coming out of a well and taking it from the inside. It's got to happen.
Yeah, well, you can do that. Send some golems underneath the tunnels and everything, and
Why
come out
not?
the other side and just start beating face. Yeah, totally.
I thought the commander mechanic worked really well because if you're a commander, basically you have a little shield that shows up on the map, and you know where your commander is anywhere on your map. So if you're just looking to group up with a bunch of crazy people who want to run around and smack people in the face, just look for the shield, and you know the commander's there, so everybody will form up on them. And suddenly swords start appearing, and you're like, oh, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to sort of get into, and I've never seen anything that expansive that's so sort of like simple to follow.
I can't get over your smile. Like it's literally from ear to ear. Every time I look back, you're just super excited, Elizabeth. Any potential downsides that you guys could see that ArenaNet needs to work on with World vs. World? I mean, the game's not out yet. Clearly, they're going to have some flaws that kinks that they've got to work out. So
Mike wants it first.
No, go ahead, Elizabeth. Ladies first.
Again, particle effects, like hugely particle effects. Like really particle effects. They said actually because Total Biscuit was actually kind of mentioning that it was a huge problem in chat, and they said that they're working on making it so that you only see stuff that's really relevant to you. They didn't really go into specifics on that, but they have heard people saying that the particle effects are not what they should be at the moment, and they promise that they're working on it.
The contrast between the figures that you're fighting and what's exploding around you isn't great enough for you to discern at times what's somebody you're hitting and what's actually a big ball of fire to the face. And believe me, there's lots of flaming
fire to the face.
balls around. The amount of the visual sort of representation, everything, it looks fantastic, especially from afar. But if you're meleeing in the middle of it, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. You can't see what's going on.
Yeah, and also it just keeping in mind like people's computers, like honestly, let's just be frank here. Some people are gonna be coming off of World of Warcraft to play Guild Wars 2, and they're gonna be like, crap,
what the heck?
What?
Now, obviously, I mean, like they're playing World of Warcraft like on low, and they're thinking, I'm just gonna switch MMOs. But I know they're going through an optimization process, so I'm not gonna make any specific comments on how that is because that'd be stupid. But I know that, I mean, we all know that particle effects equal processing, and if there's no way to really tone it down a lot, then there's it's kind of one of those things. It's like they need to change that. One of my other gripes is actually it might be kind of unique. I don't know. When it became nighttime, it wasn't really dark. it was. I mean, not even to mention the fact that my character was glowing, which I'm sure is like a glitch of some sort. But like the ground was just everything was just unusually bright for it being nighttime, and I was thinking, it'd be kind of nice if there was an actual nighttime cycle. I mean, just make it dark, like darker, and it'll just make things feel a lot more like you're sneaking around at night trying to capture objectives, and not just feel like, oh, it's like you're looking at your monitor just slightly off kilter,
Mm. It is when you're in it at night. It's just a way to make things look pretty in a different way.
It's true. Everything starts just glowing.
Yeah, it's just like
bioluminescence.
yeah. Instead of it becoming like difficult to traverse these big open spaces with under the dark sky, it's like, oh, isn't that nice? And oh wow, look, that tree shining in a beautiful way now. It wasn't quite in the same way when it was daytime. Yeah, the nighttime is just basically a different look rather than a change to your environment in any way that really affects you.
Do you guys see the concept of World vs. World really working with 3, full servers, full world PvP servers, duking it out over the course of 2 weeks? Again, we saw a switch with Alterac Valley where you used to be able to queue week-long and get into the same one over and over, and then they kind of decided that it was in the better nature of kind of where gamers and the market was going to make it shorter. Do you think that this has a place and it's going to survive as a big long-term world PvP zone for an extended period of time?
God.
The main difference between this and Alterac Valley is because of the point system and the way that it changes every 5 minutes. With Alterac Valley, the reason people got frustrated with it was that you go on for days and you wouldn't get anywhere. Like, there would be no change to the map, essentially. You would be at one of the bottlenecks. Somebody's turtling, somebody isn't, and it stays that way. So nothing changes. Whereas with that, yes, you know it's going to go on for a couple of weeks, but it's constantly changing. It should be anyway when you got full servers on all of the sides. It's constantly changing who's got the current dominance. As you said earlier, like the small supplies will actually start to matter much more when it's much tighter. So those points will make a difference every few minutes, rather than with something like Alterac Valley. There's no visible change. So if you're stuck playing that for 2 days and nothing's changed, you're going to start getting tired of it.
Yeah, I could see, and we already see it right now. Just play any MMO in a PvP environment. The second you start just the slightest little inkling of a loss, like, oh man, those guys killed 2 people. Oh my god, everybody just gives up. And it happens a lot. People are just like, wow, this team is terrible. God, why does my team always lose? This world sucks. And I can see that happening. And I could actually see, to an extent, if there is one really dominant world just pushing back, like whatever this particular one is. Let's say if the green one is just owning it up, and the blue one just happens to be attacking the red one at the same time, push them all the way back, and then there's like, well, forget it, we'll just try again in 2 weeks because our server sucks, our world sucks, I'm transferring. So I could see it getting down in some situations to a just 1 versus 1 scenario, because the third one just gave up. But that's about it, though.
Right.
But that's how. Hopefully the ranking will sort that out. Like every 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
You moved up in or down into your brackets, aren't you? So you could see individual like sessions over those 2 weeks being frustrating for some people on some servers. I could see that, especially at the beginning, because people are going to. You don't know which servers are going to be the powerhouses, and which ones are going to be the basic ones who are going to turn into welcome doormats, and they're going to get stomped for the first like couple of weeks. But then it'll start balancing itself out because of the grading system, and then it should be much better. But yeah, initially, there's going to be some complaining. I can see that.
Elizabeth, you got any thoughts on World vs. World at all?
They've pretty much said everything that I would have wanted to, so I think we're good.
All right. So I'm going to throw out another kind of PvP-oriented question. World vs. World or Battlegrounds? After seeing both, which do you guys prefer and which kind of interests you more?
What's a battleground? What's a battleground?
I can't call it by its term because I don't know what it is. I've yet to get in the beta. So help me out here, Mike B.
I'm just kidding. Structured PvP. I think both of them would be, to me, as far as interesting is concerned, I would use structured PvP to help me learn how to play a class better because you have access to so much stuff. And then I would switch everything, and then I switch over to world versus world. I like the world versus world combat better because it's open, there's more intensity, and the map is larger, and there's just more of a chance to get into large scale fights. But I would definitely use structured PvP to just kind of hone my skills.
Scott?
Yeah, definitely. I found myself actually. I did a couple of rounds. I went into WVW and was getting torn apart, and then I did a couple of rounds in the structured, and things started to click, and I started to see, like, I was up against a warrior who'd essentially been doing what I'd been doing on my Guardian, like in WVW, and then I suddenly realised I needed basically, okay, I've got to switch my weapons out. I need to start adjusting to what's going on in the battle and using different abilities to sort of control the flow of the fight rather than just wading in. And as soon as I started doing that, I was kicking his backside all over the place. And then when I went into the WVW again, I was doing much better. So yeah, the sort of finer points of those structured PvP rounds really sort of help you discern what your class is, what you be straight on that.
Elizabeth, how about you? A choice between the two.
I don't know if I can make like a choice. I mean, it really depends. Like, I love the immediacy of the structured PvP, and I enjoyed that tremendously much more than I really imagined that I was going to. So if I have to pick one, I would probably actually say structured PvP. But that's not because I dislike World versus World. It's just I spent most of my time there because it fit, it scratched the itch that I had all weekend better.
Makes sense, makes sense. All right, well, real quick, I actually just want to stop real quick and thank everybody out there who has donated to Gamebreaker TV. You guys help keep these shows running. You guys help keep us creating new content. We really appreciate it. If you haven't considered it, but you like what you see, please consider hitting the donate button above. $1, $10, $20, $1,000, whatever you can do helps us out, and we really appreciate it. So thank you guys very much. All right, so jumping in here to the next part, we've only really gotten to talk about the Battle of Kylo. With the trebuchet, but there was another one available in the beta. Did you guys get a chance to check that out? Yes?
Oh yeah, well, it puts you on. It's random, right? So whenever you go and you queue up, it just kind of throws you into whatever's available. When you go be in the mist, and you could play now. But yeah, no, the other one is actually it's the same concept, except in this case you have like these boss mobs that you could fight as well. And the boss mobs, you still have the resources that you gain, and when you kill like a boss mob, you get like 50 points or something, plus like a buff that lasts for X amount of seconds or maybe a minute or something.
So still still very same concepts, just with an added ability to get resources faster.
It's similar to like Domination, League of Legends, and like jungling. You know, like you'd go through to kill something to get a buff, then you run out and you'd own some face at a node. It's kind of like that concept, and it works. I mean, the map it's not huge. It's actually a good size, and it's kind of set inside of like I would say, I don't know, like mountainous, but kind of there's like back entryways into certain nodes and everything.
Do you actually do you actually gain a buff for killing if you take the opportunity to go kill the boss? Do you gain a buff to do more damage so that it was kind of worth the risk of killing the boss, or is the only incentive the fact that you get in like 50 points?
Well, the 50 points is a big deal.
Okay.
Because even if you are 3 capped, like let's say if you get in there and they just stomp your face in, if you go and kill you're still gaining points. So in most games where there's like a domination or a resource-based scenario, when one team captures everything, you're getting nothing. And in this case, you actually are still gaining points. I don't know if that was a bug, if that's intentional. I'm sure that's intended. That'd be kind of a weird thing just to happen like that. But then you can still go around and kill the mobs, and actually if you just are doing good for part way and then you start like really doing bad, you might be able just to focus on killing those bosses. Well, they only spawn like you're one, and then you run to the other side, kill the other, and wait for a respawn. But you could probably stay afloat that way. It's possible.
Anybody else?
And you got the risk as well. Is if you go into those bosses, then the opposition is going to be knowing you're going that way, so you're gonna you know, you're gonna have time to take that boss down, or while you're fighting it and getting damage from the boss, so they're gonna just come in and gank you, and then they can finish it off. So there's a real fine balance of doing the timing right, getting access to it, and there's a lot of like neat little backways and little bottlenecks to get through to get anywhere. So that it's very quick and more immediate. It's a very different style than the WVW because there's fights going on all the time. Like as soon as you get through one gap into a different area, you're pretty much guaranteed to be bumping into somebody else, or you see them on the way to somewhere else, because you've got nice little spied vantage points to see at the map at just the right place, so you know where to go after them, or they're just waiting for you to smack you around a bit. So yeah, it works really well.
What about
and also while I was in the,
Go ahead.
Also, when I was in there, people are asking, can you kill steal the boss? Yes, you can. When I was in there, I did notice somewhere, I don't know if it was a tooltip or maybe it was underneath their names, it says like a little thing. It says like, we'll smash your face in, and then like something else. Kind of like it gives you a heads up of what this thing will do. And I want to say somewhere in there it said something along the lines of that, let the last kill gets the point, or gets credit for it, or the last hit, or whatever. Killing blow gets credit for it. So yeah, you can be, so you can lose it after you beat it all the way down and have someone else come and kill steal it.
What about gameplay modes? I mean, this is the second gameplay mode, Mike, that you said that has kind of like that increasing resource. Is there any other type of gameplay that you guys would want to see besides, you know, hit a point cap and win?
Capture the flag, yeah.
Why not? I mean, what would you guys like to see? I mean, what if this? I don't think this is all we're gonna probably see before the game's launch. But what would you guys like to see in terms of structured PvP gameplay?
Football.
But we'd have to call it something else.
Dude, that would be great, especially given the fact
awesome.
that you actually have to dodge things. Yeah, that would make football. You could actually juke people.
Yeah, you can do a flying dodge jump off the side and catch the ball in midair, land, and you know just watch the crowd go wild. That's what you want. Yeah, I think just something. I mean, I know. We bring up Hutball. We want Hutball in every game for PvP because it actually is really quite cool. It's the best thing in Sweater came up with for me. But that's just one thing. But as just basic run around, quick fight maps, they work really well.
Do you guys think that we're ever gonna see like straight up deathmatch arenas, or like a 2v2 arena system, or something of that nature, or even straight up team deathmatch?
Do we want that?
I don't know. I'm just saying. Do you think we might ever see?
Usually,
I know I would want arenas. I love arenas. I do. Like that's my PvP of choice. If I can grab one or two friends and go in and just do it with them and have it so much more structured and planned, where we can actually work together. I like that. So I'd like to see an arena system, but I don't know. Do you guys think we'll ever see it?
I guess there is obviously a large amount of people that want an arena system. But I mean, to me, from my perspective, it's like when you don't have objectives, you have it just turns into a flavor of the month build, like a profession of the month, 3 of those, and then that's it. What's so funny? What I miss?
You totally cut off Elizabeth.
Oh, I can't hear
you
her.
Jerk. Oh no, wait.
She's muted.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Get owned.
None of us can hear you.
Yeah, see? That's funny. How long have you been muted for?
About 45 seconds. Sorry, that was why I was giggling.
I was wondering why she wasn't saying anything.
She's not.
Oh, she doesn't know why.
She's not.
Oh
no.
Because Elizabeth was just like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, she was sitting here like
she's not saying anything.
Time.
She's muted.
This is why she's been smiling the whole time.
all she can do is just communicate now through nods and shakes. That's going to be about it.
Plug and unplug it and plug it in.
All right.
Take the bad bits out.
We'll.
Is this the IT crowd? We're going to turn it on and off again. There you go. Can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So about the structured kind of arena thing is there will be structured 5v5 PvP, so you can have like ranked structured matches as opposed to just kind of hot joinable. So that's something to keep in mind for people who do want that sort of thing, where you're going in with people you formed a group ahead of time, and it's much more rigid. So there's always that.
Well, it's a good thing your mic works now, because you kept going without knowing that.
Knowledge drop.
Oh my gosh, no, I just lost that. Okay, sorry, clicking like crazy.
It's all falling apart.
It's all going downhill from here.
You know.
All right, so moving away from the PvP side of thing, were there any new dungeons that were available in the beta to try out? Someone's typing away.
Sorry.
There wasn't really new content. It was tweaks to the existing content. So we saw the Ascalonian Catacombs dungeon. Something that was interesting was we saw a lot more areas because most of the press were returning for their second time. I'm offended. So as people are coming back for their second time, they kind of adventured out more. And one of the sides of that was that we saw what's called the Fount of Rand, or the Font of Rand, which is an open world dungeon that I don't think people knew before.
That mic is like your not your headset mic, by the way.
Yeah,
We can still hear you.
No, I know.
We can also hear you typing. Just FYI.
Fix it really quickly. Hang on.
Okay.
All right, cool.
All right.
Sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
Real quick though, we'll just go on while she adjusts that. What classes did you guys put time into this weekend? What did you guys get to see? Did we get to see anything new that you haven't tried out yet?
Guardian.
What did you think?
I love the Guardian.
A little bit more of the Guardian.
A bit more Guardian, please. I have lots of Guardian. No, I played the Warrior, the Guardian, and the Ranger a little bit because I mentioned earlier in the week, and I was talking to poor Mike because he had to play everything, and whereas me, I was like, right, if I play more than 2 or 3 classes, I'm not going to see very much of the world. I know I won't because I'll just end up playing with all the mechanics of everything. So I just said, right, I'm doing 3 at most. And then I played a bit of the Warrior, and it was really fun. And then I played the Guardian, and I fell in love with it a bit. And then I just kept on playing the Guardian, and I couldn't kind of put it down. Then I forced myself to play a bit of Ranger, but then I played some more Guardian.
I think it's safe to say, Scott, you liked the Guardian.
Yeah, it's all right.
Just a little bit.
It's okay.
What about you, Elizabeth? What did you get in and get to experience?
I tried to spend as much time as possible in the Mesmer because I really, really love that class. It's super fun. The first time I went through the dungeon again, I used my Elementalist, which ended up kind of nailing me to that profession for a lot of Saturday because I got asked to go into the explorable mode dungeon, which generally you don't want to go into until you're level 35, and I was level 30 at the time, so I devoted a lot of my time to getting that level on my Elementalist, but I did spend a lot of time on the Mesmer and a lot of time on the Warrior and the Thief.
Mike, what about you?
I played everything.
That's just how I roll.
It's even better when you play everything for an entire weekend and then all that footage is garbage. That's the best part about the whole weekend.
Just gone.
QQ more. QQ more because you got to actually be in it. Oh, you poor baby.
There's a lot of good classes. Nerf Thieves. But the class I just the least by far. I hate Rangers. I just cannot stand them. And I think it has to do also with like the AI mechanics for the pets is a little wonky right now.
Yeah, it is.
So I ended up bringing my stupid pig because I figured it's like if I'm gonna have a pet that's gonna sit there and not do anything, then he can at least he could just forage around and find me something cool. And he finds me like broken eggshells. I'm like, thanks, pig. That'll do, pig.
That'll do, pig. Yeah.
But no, the melee has so many gap closers that melee doesn't really have some issues as far as that's concerned. So kiting with a ranger is kind of difficult unless your pet works. When your pet works, and you could like root him in place and kind of get away, or switch to like a greatsword or something. Which there are some good points to it. They make a great support class, but damn, I still hate them.
I don't know that I'd... No, go for it.
No, please go ahead.
I wouldn't say that I hate the Ranger. It's definitely not my favorite class. There's something about a lot of their martial weapons have kind of built-in movement, so you jump forward and then you jump back after getting in a hit, or the greatsword kind of launches you towards it. And I think they're enough that it kind of takes me out of combat a bit. I'm sure that if I dedicated time to getting used to that style, I might enjoy it, or I would at least feel a lot more comfortable in it. But as it was kind of like when I was picking things to play, like I took a Ranger to PvP and I was like, no, I don't want to mess with this right now. Like I want to go to something that I'm more comfortable with.
Yeah, I play the Ranger. I had a Snow Leopard, and I spent most of the time with the Snow Leopard just kind of looking back, going, "You going to do something?"
Anything?
I'm hearing this.
Wait,
what are you
on.
doing? It
Come
was like,
on.
Are you gonna start cleaning your fur or something? Like,
Take a bath.
it was really was it was crazy. I didn't get into the ranger as much. I also, by the way, I think you should have a bow to start with and not axe. You start off, when I started off, you had the axes, the throwing axes, and yeah, cool throwing axes, but you want a bow. That's what you want to start off with. For me, you're a ranger. Give me a bow. That's what I want. I don't.
You have to chop down a tree to make the bow.
Well, that's
what
nice.
the axe is for.
Yeah, that's cool.
Gonna just make that exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, it didn't grab me, the ranger. It really didn't.
As you guys played around with all the different classes, obviously as you equip different weapons, you're getting different abilities. As you swapped weapons and changed stances and everything, did you guys feel like Guild Wars was kind of doing something differently? Did you have a better chance of remembering all your skills? How did that feel as you got to branch out and try more things?
Well, changing weapons is almost like changing classes in other games. So learning how to do it, I think I was trying to explain this to Gary, and it didn't work because he never played Darkspawn. So my whole explanation was just totally just gone. But if you ever played Darkspawn, it felt like that, where you had like a set number of abilities, and then you could like hot swap out your
to a different spore champion thing.
To a different spore, exactly. And so that's what it felt like that to me. Obviously, take out the isometric point of view camera and everything. But it does change the way you play. So, for example, a guardian, you could go from a mace or two-handed mace or whatever, a hammer, to a staff, and it completely changes the dynamic of how you play. But yeah, swapping's gonna be king, honestly.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, do you think that most people are gonna try and stick to just one set of abilities, or are we gonna see like top players are the ones that are weapon swapping mid combat?
It's what makes such a big difference. I mean, I never thought of thinking of, because I'm such a stuck in my way sort of like pally style player, that the idea of getting a staff out on a guardian kind of didn't even like strike me as a thing to do. As soon as I did, it was like, hold on, this all makes sense.
That's why
now.
I play with this.
Okay, now I'm doing AoE heals, damage, everything else. Things are exploding, and this is great. I like this. So, you really do. I was changing from a close range, sort of hybrid damage and self heal and AoE heal class with a mace to a long range AoE sort of cone damage heal and grenade exploding balls of light with the staff, and it makes such a difference to your style of play. But when you're doing one or the other, but when you know when to interchange them and when to switch for different situations, it suddenly you go, oh, okay, this
you
all
like slip into the
makes
matrix
sense.
and suddenly everything slows down.
Exactly.
You do it all the time.
You leap over the building first time, and you're like,
It's pretty true.
It is. I know kung fu.
Go ahead.
Just as a side note, like one of the top reasons why swapping is king is that your abilities don't cool down your other weapon set. So if you have a whole bunch of OP abilities on one page, with one weapon set, and you switch, you're not triggering a cooldown on anything else. The only cooldown that's being triggered is actually switching back, and that's it.
Did any classes to you guys seem extremely overpowered or underpowered? I mean, it's beta. They're trying to get their tuning right. There has to be something that just raffle stomps everything, right? No, nothing. They got balanced down really to a T already.
No.
There was nothing. There was nothing that I felt that I come up against that was going to absolutely destroy me. There was nothing that would completely wipe the floor with me. Now, whether that was just because I was playing, I mean, I didn't get as much time in PvP as I did PvE, but in the PvP that I did find that I was able to sort of hold my own as long as I adapted to what they were doing. If I just kept on doing the same thing, they were just going to kick my teeth in. There was a warrior, I think it was, I come up against, and he just wiped the floor with me. So I switched weapons and then had a much better time of things. So I don't. If that's, I think that might be the way you can get sort of balance. But I mean, maybe there's just stuff I didn't come up against. I don't know.
Elizabeth, nothing?
Nothing?
You looked like you had something to say. I'm waiting on you.
Oh, I have a list. So
Yeah, you're looking.
Elizabeth, go first, because Mike's gonna take forever. So Elizabeth.
All right. The one thing that we noticed was going through, not so much in the story mode of the dungeon, but in the repeatable, explorable mode. Anything that was melee that wasn't wearing heavy armor and being relatively defensive was not going to end well. We had a thief in there who essentially, halfway through the first boss fight, I think it was, had to switch to just being ranged because it just wasn't an effective option at the time. Now that might have been balance issues within the dungeon because there were some other polish issues that hadn't been fixed yet, but at this time in development, melee really isn't an option for high-end dungeons.
wow.
That's
Forgot this game had PvE.
man. All right. So
Dungeons? What are those?
long list coming from Mike B.
No, it's not that long. So I think everyone's going to complain that thieves are overpowered at first, and it's because it's low skill cap, right? I mean, the barrier for entry is super low. You could get in there and just hit 5 as your opener, like all the time, and then just blow through people. Backstab hits pretty hard, but after that, unless they're really good, again, the barrier for entry is super low, so you're gonna have a lot of people rolling those and doing pretty well. Assuming the balance stays the same, like if this was launch right now, then that would kind of be a problem. Engineers are very unique in their class in that, unlike most professions where you could change weapons, they have kits. And so their kits will arm them with like a flamethrower, or they could drop mines, or they could throw a bunch of grenades. It's actually a very, very interesting class as far as like tech's concerned. You could drop turrets. So the mine laying kit or whatever is it's stupid. It's just dumb. You just drop a whole bunch of mines where you're standing, and if they're chasing you, just keep dropping mines, and they're dead.
Boom.
And it also knocks you back too. So the mines thing is kind of ridiculous.
But they sound great as you get blown up by them.
It doesn't feel great when you're like a pinball. Just
Awesome.
ding, 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 off these things. It sucks. And Guardians are OP. Like,
No,
just
they're
'cause
not.
they
Okay,
never
so
die.
now it makes sense why Scott
not.
liked them. All right.
They're not.
Scott likes the easy
Leave
mode.
them
He's just
alone,
like, I'm
dude.
gonna roll a Guardian because they're easy. You and Doggerman and his power tech can go hang out in the OP corner. Just so we're not accused
Nerf
of
mages.
being Nerf mages. Just so we're not accused of being fanboys and fangirl here. What's the worst thing about Guild Wars 2 right now, in your opinion? Time to be critical. What's the worst thing that's going on right now?
Being a single faction equals no open, actual real world PvP. And I know they have the open world PvP zones, which are huge and they're really nice. But the fact that you don't have an opposing faction on your server means that when you're out there, if you're just leveling just normally, you're never going to get into a fight. So it's kind of it's a lot like playing a PvE server where you would actually have to put yourself in a position to get killed or to go and hunt somebody down. You have to put yourself in that position initially. So there's no surprise as far as that's concerned.
Fair enough.
I'm greedy. I want the whole world to be PvP.
I can agree with that. Elizabeth or Scott, you guys got anything?
Oh dear, from core gameplay standpoint, it's difficult really. I mean, there's a lot of things that as you walk around, you're like, this is a beta. There's things like optimization, things like that. You're like, ooh. But it's a beta, and you expect these things. So it's difficult to really pick anything that I would say is to the point where I'll be concerned about it at this point. Like, some of the balancing for the personal story at times might need some tweaking. Like, sometimes I got in there and I got ruffle stomped in one of my personal stories. I mean, okay, mainly because I was being stupid, but that happens. But maybe there's some little tuning that needs going on here and there. Sometimes I think maybe it's hard. To be honest, it's hard to pick out things that I would say that I dislike at the moment. There's a few things that need tuning. There's a few things that are not quite there yet. but at this stage, that's just what I'd expect anyway from it for any game. So,
Elizabeth, you got anything at all?
I hope they continue to look at XP gain. I know that the previous beta, it was out of control. Like, it was so easy to get levels. They had people, like, just out-leveling the content like crazy and not even necessarily using any exploit or anything, just going through the game. They're like, wow, it took me 5 minutes to get to level 2 and 25 minutes to get to level 3. And this time they kind of went to, not the other extreme, but it felt really slow leveling, especially in lower levels, because there's less reward for leveling. And there's not like a whole lot of awesomeness that can happen at level 2. So the more time you spend there, the more you feel like, oh, I'm level 2. So I really hope that they continue to look at that. It's not awful right now, but it's something that I feel could be brushed up.
Yeah, it did feel like with the experience gain as it was, you really felt forced to go to every single one of the dynamic events that was out there in an area. So that could be a problem if you do feel forced to do all of them rather than to kind of pick and choose the ones that are like you just have fun with, and then you can go and move on a bit if you want to. Because of the experience gain at the moment, you got the really cool thing, you have these lookouts and they show you all of the places in the area where dynamic events are going to go on, so you can sort of plot where you're going to go and have your little adventures and everything. But if you do that, A, you're going to do a lot of travelling, and B, at the current rate of XP, you're going to do a lot of travelling to get between them, and you need to kind of do all of them to get your level up to go back to do things like personal story and things like that. So yeah, that needs a bit of tuning.
One thing I will say for it is when I got to like level 15 or 16, that kind of became less of a problem because you have enough abilities and you have, you're starting to put in trait points and stuff like that, that you have, utility skills opened up where you don't until level 7 or so. So I think that once you start getting higher rewards for leveling, it's not such a big deal, because you have cool stuff already and you have cool stuff to look forward to, whereas 2 to 3 there's almost no difference. I mean, if you're a warrior, you maybe unlock an extra burst of adrenaline. If you're a guardian, I think you might get a virtue. But there's not a huge, as much of a reward for the really low levels, so they feel a little more tedious.
Real quick, I see chat talking about the open world PvP doesn't really fit into the lore, into like the single faction thing, right? I understand that, but another game that is a single faction that has a really interesting PvP system is Terra. Terra, you can actually have guild wars. Like, your guild can actually just say, hey, I hate that guild, we're going to declare war against them, and when you're out in the open world, those players are flagged to you that are part of that guild. So that system works, and I thought that was probably one of the best parts of Terra, is that, I mean, the fact that it's an action PvP game, hopefully they get that part right. But that's such a cool system, and it works. It's single faction, and it's actual guild on guild wars. It's guild wars in Terra.
Guild Wars.
I'd like to see that.
That's a clever name.
I think definitely for me, the worst part about Guild Wars 2 is the fact that I'm not in beta yet. But if I recall, now correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you pre-order now, you actually pre-purchase. You are now from this point on, the rest of the betas you have access to. Am I correct? Yes.
So far as we know, yes.
So if you guys are upset that you're not in beta yet, go pre-purchase, and you guys can look forward to Guild Wars. Just saying. All right, moving on here. Viewer questions. Vanessa Boyer here wants to know, do you think that Guild Wars 2 will cater to both sides of the community, hardcore and casual? I think Vanessa's clearly forgetting about the hardcore casuals and the casual hardcores, as well as the semi-hardcore casuals. So it's not just divided in two. But what do you guys think?
I'm getting very confused.
Too many words.
Yeah, so as long as we take care of the casually hardcore casuals, then we'll be okay.
The casual hardcore is car and
that's a takeaway.
What do you guys think, though? Do you think that they're doing a good job of catering to both sides of the community here, and everything in between?
Yes, I would say. So you have like the really approachable stuff like PvE, and World vs. World is kind of forgiving because if you're in a mob, it doesn't really matter if you're not super great in like every like perfect second to hit a skill. So there are very forgiving gameplay modes, and then there's a lot of room for being really excellent and getting really well rewarded for being excellent. So I think right now it looks like they're striking a pretty decent balance.
Yeah, you try running through a dungeon if you don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna last very long.
And like, if you have a general idea of how your class works and you're with other people who have a general idea of how their class works, you'll probably make it through the dungeon. I mean, you might be like naked and crying at the end of it, but you'll probably make it through. That is not nearly the case for explorable mode. You can have your shit pretty well together, and it won't be necessarily a guaranteed success.
Mike, what do you think? Any additional thoughts?
I mean, from a PvP perspective, I know they're gonna add leaderboards and all that. So that's just a given. So after they add that, then we'll just see how like it pans out from there. But as casual players, I played a level 80 character on 8 different professions. So I would say that kind of caters to the casual crowd pretty straight up as far as PvP is concerned.
And also, I mean, WVW says casual, but you know there's going to be guilds going crazy to get in there, and I want that keep. I'm going to do this. We're going to be the guild that dominates this one, and you're going to see hardcore within the WVW. There's no doubt about that. It's set up so you can go out and have a very casual experience and a lot of fun, and just hey, look at us all exploding around each other, and then you're going to have guilds racing to get ownership of keeps and wanting to stamp their flag down and say we own all this. So there's going to be hardcore elements to the casual stuff, and there's going to be casual stuff to the hardcore stuff, which is casually hardcore.
Casually
there
hardcore.
we go. It's taking care of it.
It's all kinds of hardcore and casual all at the same time. All right, next up, Tom Larson wants to know, players taking part in, there's that word battlegrounds again. Players taking part in battlegrounds will be given a predefined character for use in PvP. In other words, PvE and PvP will be 2 completely separate gaming experiences. Is this true? What do you guys think?
Yeah, because if you get in the game and... Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Go for it. If you go in, you have access to all your skills, and then you leave, you're back to being level 2. And then it's like, oh, I have to actually unlock all these things.
I gotta do this again?
Yeah, exactly. It still might feel that way.
That's still, it's not really a predefined character. I mean, it's just an unlocked character, so it's still a character you rolled and put your backstory into. So if you want to use the same character for PvE and PvP, you can. Like, you'll have your 2 different armor sets, and it'll work really well. I did that several times with the Mesmer because I didn't feel like having 2 separate Mesmers, so I just kept jumping back and forth between PvE and PvP so I could experience as much as possible. And it worked pretty flawlessly. Also, World versus World, you don't have that happening. Like, you're auto-boosted to 80, but you have whatever it is that you've unlocked on your character. So there's a little bit of a blended line there. It's not like in Guild Wars 1, certainly, where you could roll just a straight-up PvP character that couldn't do anything else. That doesn't exist here.
And also, it doesn't take you long to unlock your different abilities on each individual weapon. So it's not like you'll only have 2 for the first 2 abilities for like the first 20 levels or something. It's not like that at all. You get them really quick. Like you can watch them move up as you're killing mobs. So what it will mean, the difference is when you're level 80, you'll have all of the weapons to choose from with all of the abilities unlocked, whereas at low level you'll only have like maybe a couple of weapons that you've unlocked everything on. So to me, and that's sort of the learning curve of it, is that at lower levels you're going to focus on a couple of weapons and all of the abilities that are entailed within them, and make the maximum out of those. And then at top level you're going to be knowing which are the best sets for your play style and be able to switch between them and so on. So it just gives you much more depth of play as you get up in levels. So I don't think that that's a big problem.
All right, next up, Philip. I swear, you guys are just giving me some of the hardest names. Philip Dragon. Dragon. I'm gonna say Dragon because that sounds awesome. Philip Dragon asks, didn't the World vs. World zone feel a little bit too big? As I have seen in Mike B's video, there are a lot of empty areas and plain roads, and it took a lot of time to get a place where battles were actually happening. Mike, I think you kind of touched on this a little bit when you were talking about how it's nice to have those areas where nothing's going on, and it just kind of makes random, almost in a sense, world PvP just kind of happen in areas that you want it to. What would you say about that?
You know, like I said, it takes you a while to get places, but there's benefits to that. If you have, like, say, the high ground, or you go to a point where you have high ground, the draw distance is actually pretty impressive. Where you could see people a good ways away, so you could plan these things. So once you get there, you could actually plan to go around. So you might actually add time because you're going all the way around to, like, the backside of a keep or something. So I think the size is fine, assuming that we're gonna have, you know, the 500 player, you know, cap going on each one, in which case, and then yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But
what about you guys? What do you guys think about the scale of World vs. World? Do you think it's gonna be a problem where there's too many empty areas?
I think it's kind of necessary if you want to let people do the sneaking around and the kind of planning alternate routes and figuring out how to get from point A to point B without running into whoever, or with running into whoever. I think it's necessary for the kind of tactics that they want to encourage.
Scott, any final thoughts?
It's if you like your Lord of the Rings type sort of hordes coming over the hill and descending down and like locusts and everything. This is built for that to happen on. Basically, you've got so much scope and range for either small pockets of fights to be strategic, or for great big masses of craziness going on all at the same time in a great big vast area. So I really don't think it's a problem. I don't at all. I think if anything, it's gonna create more opportunity than it'll create problems.
All right, up and last up here, David Hollingsworth wants to know: did you find that the melee classes in Guild Wars 2 have the mobility to keep up with ranged? On that note, do you believe that the ranged weapon choices for classes such as the Thief and Warrior will be competitive with more pursuit ranged classes? I.e.
Purist.
Purist? Haha. Yes, purist.
One of those words.
One of those words.
That has letters.
Egg on my face. Will a pistol thief or rifle warrior be able? I was doing so well. Will a pistol thief or rifle warrior be able to keep up with a bow ranger? That was a yes.
Yeah, no, that was. I mean, my warrior was running around with a hammer and a longbow because it was totally awesome. And actually, I ended up using my longbow for a lot of close combat just because I could. So yeah, I think right now the classes that have the ability to do both are pretty well balanced as far as what they can do. Yeah.
I mean, we used to in MMOs when you've got a melee class and they whip out a ranged weapon. It's like, you know what I mean? The useless. But with the warrior, you whip out a longbow and you like, second button, that's 3 flaming arrows shooting across the room and exploding. And there's not that paucity of experience when you switch to a ranged weapon, because it's not about your class, it's about the abilities that the weapon brings, rather than saying, oh well, that's a ranged class, so that means that's what that does, so that means the melee class can't do that. But that's not true, because the range class can also whip out a melee weapon and start turning into a blender on you. So there's balance on both sides.
What about you, Mike?
You could build your character to be like a pure melee class. Like you have a warrior with dual axes or sword and board or those two. I mean, whatever. You could be just pure melee and then just get a whole bunch of utility spells that are mostly utility as far as like close range is concerned, not really anything long range, like movements, like charge. Like they have like a leap type utility. So you can build yourself to be that way, and if you get kited to death and you die, it's kind of your own fault. So the game allows for you, it gives you plenty of opportunity to be able to adapt to either of these things. So pistol thief, swapping out for double daggers. I mean, when you get close, you can totally do all that stuff. It allows for it.
All right, well, that about wraps it up. Mike B, aka Phony. You can follow him over at aka Mike B. Mike, you got a bunch of Guild Wars videos coming out in the next couple days, right?
Oh my god, I'm so happy. I hate you. Is this revenge right there?
No, no, not at all.
Oh my.
Thanks.
Are you going to dance around someone who's broken their leg as well?
I know.
Look at me!
Thanks, man.
No
Took
problem.
A ballista to the knee right there.
No problem. No problem. And Elizabeth Clare, you can follow her over at Elizabeth Clare with an X.
Yes, no Z's.
Elizabeth, what you got going on? Any fun stuff coming up the next couple days?
PAX has come up next weekend,
You
which
going?
is always super exciting. Yeah, I kind of threw that all together last minute, so I'm really looking forward to that. Haven't been to East before, so haven't even been to Boston before, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Excellent, excellent. And editor-in-chief of Gamebreaker, Scott Hawks. You can follow him at Jerry Moore. Scott, what you got going on?
I'm hoping sleep at some point, but probably not.
Just the bed.
No, I'm working on a bunch of Guild Wars 2. I was sifting through so far. I've got 10. I've got 2.5 hours of videos, and I'm about 20% through my total fraps folder at the moment. So my main problem is trying to figure out how I'm going to actually put all this together. So there's going to be lots of Guild Wars 2 videos coming on Gamebreaker in the next weeks.
So keep it tuned right here. We're going to have a lot of coverage for you guys. You can follow me right here at Mike Schaffnitz. Be sure to follow at Gamebreaker TV for all of your gaming-related needs. Check out the site. A lot of Guild Wars 2 stuff, a lot of other MMOs. If you love it, we probably have it. So, another day, another time, another GuildCast. Thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next week.
Bye, chat room.
Goodbye, chat.
Bye, chat.
I'll see you in 40 minutes. I'm such a whore.
Yeah.
Yeah.